Good day and welcome to another day and a look into the future. Let's get started, shall we? Fusion power, the holy grail of clean energy, might be closer than we think. A new project in Tennessee aims to have a commercial fusion plant up and running by the mid-2030s, potentially revolutionizing how we generate electricity.
Wait, fusion power, like the same thing that powers the sun? I thought that was still decades away from being practical.
That's exactly what makes this announcement so exciting. The Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, has entered into a cooperative agreement with a company called Type 1 Energy to develop plans for a fusion power plant in the Tennessee Valley region.
So what makes this different from all the other fusion projects we've heard about over the years?
Well, there are a few key factors. First, they're not just building a small experimental reactor. They're planning a 350-megawatt fusion pilot power plant called Infinity 2. That's enough to power hundreds of thousands of homes.
That's a pretty ambitious scale. How are they planning to pull this off?
They're using a design called a stellarator, which is different from the more common tokamak fusion reactors. Picture a twisted donut shape that uses incredibly powerful magnets to contain plasma at temperatures hotter than the sun. That sounds incredibly complex. How does it compare to other fusion designs? The unique thing about stellarators is they can potentially operate continuously, unlike other fusion designs that need to pulse. And that continuous operation is crucial for a commercial power plant. You can't exactly power a city with something that keeps turning on and off.
So if this works, we're talking about a clean, virtually limitless source of energy. That could be a game changer for climate change, right?
Absolutely. Fusion power could provide reliable baseload power without producing any greenhouse gases. It's like finding the holy grail of clean energy, if they can make it work.
But haven't we been hearing about fusion being just around the corner for decades? What makes this project different?
You know, that's a fair point. But there are a few things that set this apart. First, they're not just doing research. They're actually planning a commercial power plant. They've got concrete plans, partnerships, and infrastructure in place.
Oh, so it's not just scientists in a lab. It's a real-world energy project.
Exactly. And they're taking a methodical approach. First, they're building a prototype called Infinity 1 to test everything, and then moving on to the actual power plant, Infinity 2.
That makes sense. But still, the timeline seems pretty ambitious. Mid-2030s for a commercial fusion plant? That's less than 15 years away.
You're right, it is ambitious. But here's why it might be achievable. They're not starting from scratch. They've got TVA's expertise in power plant construction and operation. They're using existing infrastructure where possible. And they've already got manufacturing partnerships in place.
Speaking of partnerships, how are they handling the manufacturing aspect? I mean, how do you even begin to build something this complex at scale?
Well, that's where their strategy really shines. Instead of trying to reinvent everything, they're leveraging existing expertise. They're partnering with TVA's power service shops in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, for manufacturing and assembly.
So they're combining TVA's power plant experience with Type 1 Energy's fusion technology.
Exactly. It's like combining the best of both worlds. And they're not stopping there. They've also got a technology licensing and manufacturing agreement with Commonwealth Fusion Systems. It's all part of their strategy to avoid reinventing the wheel.
You know, this could have some pretty significant economic implications for the region, couldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about high-tech jobs, from engineers and physicists to technicians and operators. And these aren't just any jobs. These are positions that will be at the forefront of energy technology.
Have you seen any estimates on the number of jobs this could create?
Well, specific numbers haven't been released. But consider this. A typical nuclear power plant employs anywhere from 500 to 800 people directly, and creates thousands of indirect jobs. A fusion plant could have similar or even greater impact, especially when you factor in the research and development aspects.
That's pretty impressive. But what about the environmental impact? I mean, we're still talking about a massive power plant here.
That's the beauty of fusion power. Unlike traditional nuclear power, fusion produces minimal radioactive waste. And compared to fossil fuel plants, the environmental impact is negligible. No greenhouse gas emissions, no air pollution, and the fuel source, typically hydrogen isotopes, is abundant and widely available.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, we're looking at a power source that's clean, safe, and virtually limitless.
That's the promise of fusion, yes. And if they can make it work at this scale, it could be a game changer for how we produce energy globally.
The global implications of this technology are pretty staggering when you think about it. If it works in Tennessee, it could be replicated worldwide, right?
Absolutely. And that's exactly what makes this project so exciting. It's not just about powering the Tennessee Valley. It's about developing a blueprint for fusion power that could be used globally. And TVA's power service shops could become a key manufacturer for fusion plant components worldwide.
You mentioned earlier that TVA's Vice President of Innovation and Research talked about this as a national security issue. Can you expand on that?
Sure. Think about it. Fusion power could provide virtually limitless clean energy using fuel that's abundant and widely available. No more dependence on foreign oil or rare earth elements. It's about energy independence on a national scale.
That really puts the importance of this project into perspective. We're not just talking about a new power plant. We're potentially witnessing the birth of a new era in human history.
You know, that's not an exaggeration. If this works, and that's still a big if, it could be as revolutionary as the transition from coal to oil was in the early 20th century. We're talking about abundant, clean energy that could power our civilization for thousands of years.
Well, it sounds like we'll be keeping a close eye on Tennessee in the coming years. Any final thoughts on what to watch for as this project develops?
Definitely keep an eye on the progress of the Infinity One prototype. That'll be a crucial proof of concept. Also, watch for any announcements about regulatory approvals. That'll be a key hurdle. And of course, any updates on the timeline or scale of the project could be significant.
This has been fascinating. Who would have thought that the future of energy might be unfolding right now in Tennessee?
It just goes to show that sometimes the future shows up where you least expect it. And who knows? In a few decades, we might be looking back on this as the moment when everything changed. And there you have it. What the future!